Welcome back to the Sport Management and Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Dr. Casey Rzinski, aka Dr. R. We'll be sharing stories, highlighting helpful hints, and leaving leadership lessons from professionals in the sport and athletic industry. Our guest today is none other than Jacob Manchester, who's the Director of Esports at Navarro College in Texas. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated. I'm very interested, and I'm actually thankful that you said athletics as well as sports. I think a lot of times it's quite interesting. You get two levels of esports: is if it's actually athletics and if it's not. And so it's kind of nice to be. We're under athletics at Navarro, so it's kind of nice to be introduced as athletics. A lot of the times, people are like, "How can you use, I guess, data analytics in sports?" How I use it is inside the game as well as outside the game. So inside the game, if you guys are familiar with Valorant at all, it's just a riot-based title FPS, and so I pretty much live in the spreadsheets. What we do in the spreadsheets is kind of just again look for common trends. If that's first kills correlated into round wins, and we kind of go into the spreadsheet. I have my assistant coach. We use a program called Scoutly. You can look it up, and pretty much we just record our VODs, we upload it, and they give out us a data sheet. And so within that, we go in and kind of look for the correlations between, again, if it's first kills and it's round wins, and then how do we set up our team for success? That's kind of in game, and then out of game, again, a slight, I guess, data analytics would be just like looking how to improve the body so we get better results in the game. If that's being, there's an academic study with like being more physical, it's like, I forget what it is, like a 10% return on game. And then as well as we look at like caffeine intake. So again, we look at all the data points, not only inside the game, but also outside the game.
Oh, neat. So just for clarification for everyone in the audience that's not familiar, Valorant is a competitive game, and when he says kills, he doesn't mean
Oh,
in related. It's okay.
they
Do you
don't
want
actually
to?
die. They
Yeah,
respawn next round. You just can't play the end of the round. I forgot that this is a
gotcha.
academic thing, so I apologize.
No worries, no worries. I just want to make sure everyone's like clear about what that means. And yeah, esports. But let's get into a little bit of your background and kind of like how you started, what your journey has been like in sport, and athletics, and also too like what the tie-in is, not just with data analytics, but like the business side of
You got
sports,
it.
and so how that transitions to the athletics realm.
Okay. And if I forget any part of that question, because it was like multiple questions in one, we can loop back at the end. So my journey, I think, as I'm 27 years old, so I've been in the industry now, I think for 3 years, going into my fourth. I always wanted to be a gamer or like be a professional gamer, go pro in video games at 15. And so that's kind of when the rise of YouTube was coming, Phase was coming up. And it's like, oh, mom, I want to be a professional gamer. They obviously thought it wasn't a real career because they saw no money into it. Obviously, at that time, there was a very small group of people actually making a living. Fast forward to 2019, you have the blow up of like Fortnite, Twitch, YouTubers, and now like every single kid wants to be one. I still wanted to be in esports in some capacity, but I didn't know what that capacity was. And so I helped with the marketing side in college, and then transitioned to post grad. I graduated in 2019. I got a bachelor's degree in finance, struggled to find a job. I moved out to Montana for my job, and lucky enough there, the University of Montana had a Valorant team, and I kind of just pitched myself to the director of esports there to say, hey, I'm high rank in this game. I've coached before. Can I coach your Valorant team? And that was kind of the foot in the door, right? Did it for free because it was a passion of mine. Probably a lot of your students have some sort of passion in esports. So I highly recommend just to reach out to anyone. If your university has a program that you're interested in, just email them. If not, look at local universities around and help them. I guess technology as well. You can help people out from all over the country. In esports, it's kind of interesting now. A lot of people are hiring out kind of third-party coaches, just because, again, we're kind of like an athletic director in esports. So I'm proficient in coaching like one or two games, but I have 5 different titles that I have to coach. And so that's, again, kind of something interesting in esports. I guess to actually get my foot in the door in the director of esports space. I was just like, I'm going to apply to X number of jobs a day until I get this director of esports positions, just because it was, I think, like they were looking for people with a bachelor's degree and interested in video games, and I applied to, I don't know, countless numbers of them.
So it sounds like a common theme that we hear in the sports and athletics realm, where it's like there's an opportunity, you put yourself out there, you took the risk, and see what happens. And so I think that's something that everyone who's been in the sports and athletics realm, just dive in head first, right? It's like, okay, let's roll up my sleeves and let's see what I could get done. So, talking a little bit about like your director position, right? Which is interesting. So it's like the separation of like coach and director. So director would be more like you said, athletic director. But maybe for like a team, it would be like something similar to more of like a general manager of a professional sports team, where you're dealing with all the day-to-day daily operations, right? Did I
Yeah.
like catch that correct? And so, you've done a lot too with your program's financial budget and funding and like all these other nuances. Talk a little bit about like, obviously your background's at finance, but like, how you got started in like looking at like the budget, enhancing the program, marketing, like all these things that go into, running a program organization.
I think a lot of it, again, I think it's trial and error. So I was 25 at the time and came in and they're like, you have control of, I think it was like over 100K budget for, I think year over year, including my salary. And so it was a lot of just like figuring out what the program needed to survive, and then what the students were looking for. And so again, I think it was just like being fluid with the students, or open, seeing what they wanted in the program. So if that's like better computers, more computers, if that's councils, I think again, going in the first year, complete, just trying to keep my head afloat of the water. We're again a college. I think the academic year starts in late August. I got there Labor Day, so I was already like couple of weeks behind getting to campus, and I just treaded water the first year, just making sure the program survived. Got more understanding the second year, and so now like the third year is, again, I think it's now I'm currently into like, how do I optimize the budget and get the most out of it. I did funding to grow our program to all 4 campuses that we have. And so we have computer labs in all 4 campuses, again, with all of the computers, made sure we got the right specs for those computers, and kind of made sure the longevity was there. A lot of the times it's really hard for these, I guess, esports labs complexes, what do you want to call them, to make sure the computers are kind of like, I guess, solid machines for a couple of years, because it really compounds. I think we have close to 40 computers total, and so again, if you're buying $1,000 computers 40 times every 3 years, the number adds up, and that kind of goes into sponsorships and partnerships for this year, and something that's I'm going to introduce. And so now I'm currently going to local businesses to see if they want to partner with our program, just again to make sure we can stay afloat.
Wow, that's a lot. How I'm curious too, because we're covering data analytics, right, as a part of our course this week, and so like you talked about how you've leveraged your finance background with data analytics. What are some other ways that, including also your your games, but like what are some of the other ways that you leverage data? For either building the program or justifying things or just keeping things organized, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know if this really answers your question, but to leverage the data, I think it starts with the top. So like my boss wants us to have quite a big number of programs. So now it looks into how, if I don't introduce a new title, I get X number of students. That takes X hours of numbers of my time. If I introduce, I don't know, like a game night that's only 1 hour a week, I can introduce 5 new students every single week. So I think going into it, kind of looking how much time it takes per activity to go back to my boss and be the most effective with my time, because I can keep including, I can introduce this game, but I'm only one person. I can't coach again, 20 different teams. I had 3 team-based games last year, and that was crazy enough. So I don't know if I can stretch myself too thin and introduce a 4th game, or if it's something like a in-house tournament, a game night, to better use my time to go back to my boss to say, hey, I introduced, again, 15 new students to my program, but only using 1 hour of my time.
So basically like a cost benefit analysis, in other words.
Yeah, pretty much. And the cost is just the, I guess, hour of labor or hour of attention to these students.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so like now you're at the stage where you're growing the program, you're looking at sponsorships and partnerships and really starting to like see like the big picture, right? And so what's your experience been like as far as the journey goes, right? You started in year 1 and you're like, okay, I'm here. I got to work with what I have. And every year you're just taking new steps, right, to create something better than what it was, right? And so now you're in like a leadership role and you're managing different aspects. How do you prioritize like some of these things that come in? Like how do you say that let's focus on this area over here versus this area, right? Whatever that is. Like how
Got
do
it.
you?
Oh. And so I think like the first year, I think it was like the head afloat. And then year number 2, I finally got scholarships so I could go out and recruit people in so I can have a solid team to compete. And so again, hopefully in Valorant, if you guys are familiar, I think I started with like a silver team. So in terms of data analytics, I think they were like top like I don't know. They were like below 50 percentile of like in ranked, and now we're immortal average rank, and so I think that's in they're upper like top 90% or whatever. And so again, it's having a quality product like on the field, I guess, is now I can promote them off the field to be like, hey, I'm hoping for being a top 50 team in the nation for Valorant. Fingers crossed that we actually get it. And then kind of promoting that to the outside the game stuff. Hopefully this is making sense because it's making sense in my mind. But it's having like a good product on the field first, and now I can focus on off the field stuff. And so again, that's to sponsorships. Now in year 3, I'm already recruiting for next year, even though this school year hasn't even started yet, making sure my students are okay on the field, because it's a lot easier to have that set roster months in advance than kind of scramble in the summer months to be like, who is going to be my 5 players playing for this game. And I think again, it's all trial and error at the end of the day. For my end of thing, my program's going to be completely run differently than, again, a Blend Esports. They're a community college down the road from us, and you go to every single program, there's going to be some similarities, but in a majority it's all completely different. And I think it goes down to the individual and what I seem fit.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So it's like focusing on your own program right before you're doing the external work. It's like control the controllables versus doing the other business related aspects, right? But I looked at your background, and you also have some non-athletics, non-sports experience in management and in marketing too. So like you know a thing or two about like how to do different aspects of the business world. And like I always talk about like experience is experience, right? Skill sets, you could gain those anywhere. It doesn't have to be solely in the sports realm, but then you could take those things that you learned and then build those and use those elsewhere, right? So your prior experience before you got into this role, like were those talk about some of those experiences, like management and marketing, and how like you're utilizing some of those things that you learned before and actually applying them now in your role.
Got it. And I think at the end of the, it's like sports is a business, right? And it's to make money. It's kind of funny coming from an esports person because of, if you're familiar with the finance of esports, not great. But how I leveraged it, I think and so I I was in marketing for a nonprofit, did a lot of like kind of like the digital work for them, like introducing their campaigns into like Facebook ads, creating a digital counterpart. And it's like, how do you leverage that for the current job? And again, being a director of esports, most of the time you're a one-person department. So you're the finance department, marketing department, HR, whatever you want. And so I had to leverage my program. And so how did I kind of leverage that previous experience? It's just like, oh, I know how to run our socials because again, we're gamers. We're on Discord, Instagram, X, not Twitter, YouTube, and stuff like that. So I have familiarity with it, and that's kind of how I leveraged that. And I think for a lot of you guys, if you're listening to this, most of your previous experience can be worded in a way that you have relevant experience towards something in sports. And just again, look at if it's a job application, look at the job description, see what kind of seems fit. And again, at the end of the day, I think a lot of this experience is just kind of like trial and error. You go do it, see if you like it, and then apply that to whatever job. Because who knows, down the road, I could be in some sort of actually finance job, and I could leverage this job for finance. I could leverage this job for marketing, even though it's just one job.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I want to take you back a little bit to your experience as a business student, right? What were some of the things that you look back on now that you learned in your program that you say, oh, okay, like I remember this, and now I'm actually applying this in real time, like whether it be like a class or like a concept or anything from business. Doesn't have to be finance related, but any of your business related courses.
I think like the biggest thing is marketing, I think, and it's talking about like how everything is marketable now. If it's like a jersey, excuse me, like shorts or something, I think it's my biggest goal is to get the esports students like the coolest apparel on campus, just so when they play for us, they get really cool apparel, and then everyone's like, "Hey, like, what is that apparel from? Oh, it's for esports." Or it's like the football people are like, "Oh, like, why do the esports people, I don't know, get like a really cool jacket or something like that?" So I really do think like marketing is just like everywhere. Like our attention is so valuable in this day and age, and I think that's something that I learned back to, like again in a marketing class, and didn't really like see it until it's now. And you're like, oh my god, like literally everything you do is like marketable. If that's like, again, if it's a sticker on a phone, you're carrying around a phone, it asks questions. We have lanyards. I hand out lanyards to literally everyone to, again, start the conversation of our esports program. So I think literally how everything can be marketable is a huge thing that went over my head in school. And now, like, being in a space that I benefit from marketing, it's like, all right, now how do I leverage everyone else's attention to make my program kind of the best?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great feedback, right? And intention is everywhere. So one thing that gets brought up a lot now in conversations in the athletics realm is name, image, likeness, NIL. And I know it's maybe not as applicable in like the esports realm, but has it something you came across with players, NIL deals, or even like having those conversations around NIL?
So not yet. I think again, I think we had this previous talk, kind of like the diet or where esports is now, and you kind of talked about it being, I think, like the 70s of women's basketball. And so I definitely think in the future of once this sports, or I guess once the scene gets developed, that the NIL deals will come. I think it's just so early on is that most people that would be, I guess, would be like marketable in the NIL, or someone would seem fit to already go pro or already have like a stream. So a lot of the times, if you look at the bigger programs, if that's like Northwood, I'm trying to think of the big programs, but they'll have like streamers, and they might have deals or sponsorship deals with their personal brand, which could be close. But I don't think for a smaller program like myself currently that I have the talks with my students about NIL.
Okay, yeah, and maybe another one to add to the mix. Now that women's basketball is actually growing in every aspect, right? With the media deal that's in the works, is maybe esports, is kind of like on the same wavelength as pickleball. Who knows? Maybe we'll see pickleball as another emerging
Yeah.
sport in this. But yeah, shifting gears for a little bit. Talk about too, like, what are your experiences as far as just the interactions in athletics, right? And so with the students, like, we always have conversations about the importance of mental health and wellness and well-being. But then also too, like, even though esports is, it's a lot of it's sitting, it's a lot of hand-eye coordination, things like this. So you're talking about cognition. And I think that nutrition has become a huge part of the conversation, and athletic programs across the board is like also an emerging topic, right? And so it's not just enough to say, hey, get your workouts in and make sure you're getting proper sleep, but also it's kind of like, okay, what do we put in our bodies? And you talked about a study with caffeine, and like, so where do you see that going to in the next even couple of years? Is like how important is like health, well-being, especially nutrition and
Yeah,
athletics?
and so I think we're getting to a point where all of the teams are now seeing like, oh, the traditional sports are doing it, we're gonna do it. And so if you look at a lot of I would say the bigger gaming organizations, like on a worldwide scale, they have quite a big staff. If you look at like the Fnatic team, and they're based out in Berlin, they have performance coach, like nutritionist, and like their I'd say team is way bigger than just one coach. And so I think it's gonna be the trickle down effect. The pros are doing it, then the big programs that have money in college are gonna do it, and then go all the way down to us. And so I try to preach it myself every single day. Again, I try being a one person department. I try to do what I preach. Try to eat healthy. And do all of the things well, because it's not going to go well if it's like, oh, make sure you eat well and I'm eating just like a Big Mac before the game. What I try to do is do it like step by step. Again, you don't want to have all of these crazy rules. You're number one, right? You don't want to be like, oh, you have to go to bed, I don't know, before midnight. Make sure you get your 8 hours, and have this crazy training regimen for them. I think it's, again, piece by piece, year by year, introduce something new. So this past year, I took a course by Fit Gamer, and it was all about how to run your program. They had a small bit about like nutrition, how to do hour blocks and like game day regimens. And so I just introduced like, hey, no big meals 2 to 3 hours before game time, just because, again, when you body digests like a large meal, you have, I think it's just, I forget the percentage, but like you play worse pretty much. And that's all I care about. And so I said, hey guys, we have a game at 6. You guys know we have a game at 6. No meals 3 hours before. So if you want to eat a big meal before the game, make sure it's done before 3 p.m. And again, I think it's just smaller steps. I actually am connected with an esports coach in the high school level. And I think he was the first high school to actually mandate esports workouts. Again, that's at the high school level. So I think it's, again, only a matter of time that it's going to be the same thing as the football team. A nutritionist, we're going to have workouts at, who know, like not 6 a.m., but again, like have team workouts. It's only a matter of time that people see the benefits that the pros are doing it, and then it'll come all the way down to us.
Great points. And you also brought up something too that is important too for anyone in the sports athletic industry's professional development, right? So even though you're in this role, you're still learning. You're still seeing what information's out there, trying to soak up whatever knowledge to apply to your current position. So that's super important. I'm going to throw up your contact information on the screen so that if anyone wants to reach out to you, they could do so. But other than that, what advice or feedback, looking on your younger self and as a business student, what advice would you give to that younger version of yourself, or to current students who want to pursue roles in the sport industry, or business related aspects in sports and athletics?
All right, God. I would say, okay, don't tell your parents or whoever, but like just trust your gut. If you have a passion, go for it. I get a lot of flack with that about being in esports because I talk to students about gaming, and it's like if you have a passion for it, you will figure out how to get it done. Like if your want or why you want this position is big enough, you internally will figure out how to get it done. And I think that's again betting on yourself as a 22-year-old in college, and I just wanted to be in esports. I had no idea how I was going to do it. It took a little bit of time, took a couple of years to actually get myself in esports. But again, it's the 1% better every single day. It sounds so cliche, but if you can make one connection, if you can talk to one person, you never know where that kind of conversation or connection will lead to. So just be open to everything. Talk to people. I think that's again the biggest thing. Most of the time, we're just selling ourselves, right? So get it, and especially in sports, get used to talking. Again, if you're more introverted, just hop on a podcast, talk more. I don't know. And again, stay positive, have self-confidence about yourself, and bet on yourself, I think is the biggest thing at the end of the day.
Love that passion, purpose, and betting on yourself, putting yourself first. Do you have anything else you want to add? I'll leave you with the last words. Anything that we didn't talk about, or other feedback in sports athletic industry, or things you learned along the way, quotes, resources, any leadership lessons, any things like that you want to leave with people?
I think, well, number one, if you what's it called? If you want to add me on LinkedIn, by all means, add me on LinkedIn. If I can help you in any sort of professional way or personal way, I'm more than willing to help you guys. Again, it's just Jacob Manchester on LinkedIn. Again, I'm trying to think of a good quote. I think I used this in my senior yearbook. If you don't pursue your dream, someone will hire you to like build theirs. A little different in athletics, but again, just go for your dream. You're the only one that's going to have to work your job. So make sure you're actually doing it for yourself and not someone in your life, I think is a good quote to end on.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jacob, and thanks for tuning in. Until the next one.